Methodology of Humanities, Module 3, Narration and Representation, Part 4, Mimesis and Diegesis. For Aristotle, the purest form of mimesis is the imitation of human action in drama and narrative. The assortment of imitation, the various types of imitations, accompanied by the poet's voice, the writer's voice, is powerful means of representing the world, with its foremost manifestation being narrative. Mimesis endorses to realize the complexities of human condition and helps the viewer to experience some kind of a relief through catharsis, the aesthetic exploration of emotions as perceived by the audience. When the audience watches a drama, a tragedy, for example, he or she will be having some kind of an aesthetic experience through which he or she achieves some kind of a relief. When we watch a drama or a film, we are freed of certain emotions. Some kind of a relief is achieved. And this is called a catharsis, a kind of purification of the mind, of the soul. Just like we empty our bowels, catharsis, for which some kind of an emotional appeal would be created. In the mind of the spectator or the reader, some kind of a emotion of pity and fear will be aroused. Pity at the undeserved suffering of the hero of a drama, and the fear of the worst that may happen to him. In Greek tragedies, people will have, or the main characters, the heroes, will have some kind of a tragic flow, a hamartia. See, this will lead to the fall of the character, the destruction of the character. And while watching this kind of a tragedy, the audience will have some kind of a purification of mind. Aristotle claims that character and action are essential elements in a story to create this kind of an effect in the mind of the audience. And the character is revealed through the action done in the plot. He reflects things on three key elements of the plot. One is hamartia. The character will have some kind of a character flaw, a mistake, a frailty, a weakness with which he falls. He gets some kind of a self-destruction. Next is anagnorisis, the discovery of the false moves taken by the hero in ignorance, a change from ignorance to knowledge. In the drama King Lear by Shakespeare, Shakespeare creates characters with some kind of a tragic flow. And the tragic flow in King Lear is his inability to understand his daughters. That was his weakness. And later he understood. He understands his mistake. And that also is an element of the plot from ignorance to knowledge. King Lear was ignorant of the quality of his daughters, and later he comes to realize his fault. And third is peripetia. Peripetia is generally explained as reversal of the situation. By a reversal of the situation is meant very nearly a reversal of intention, an action done in ignorance, defeating its own purpose. A move to kill an enemy, but it will end up in killing of oneself or wounding one's own head, for example. The effort to save a person, turning into just its opposite, or killing an enemy and discovering him to be a friend. The plot may be very simple or very complex. In a simple plot, there are no puzzling situations, confusing situations that enter into a complex plot. In particular, there won't be peripeteia or anagnorisis, reversal of the situation, or recognition or rediscovery. Both peripeteia and anagnorisis please the audience because there is the element of surprise in them. And Aristotle argues that the plot of a tragedy should not be simple but very complex. A plot that makes use of them, the peripeteia, anagnorisis, etc., is complex, and a perfect tragedy should be arranged not on the simple but on the complex plan. And there should be a tragic hero as well, a man who is not eminently good or just, yet whose misfortune is brought about not about his evil actions, but by some error, some frailty, some weakness, some fault, some flaw in his character. His misfortune excites pity and fear because it is out of all proportion to his error of judgment and his overall goodness that the tragedy befalls him. See, to create this kind of an effect upon the reader or the viewer, some techniques are to be used. So, mimesis for Aristotle is the imitation of human action in drama and narrative, and this should be used in such a way that the audience will be having a kind of experience, similar experience. Because mimesis endorses, mimesis simply helps to realize the complexities of human condition and helps to experience relief through catharsis, the aesthetic exploration of emotions as pursued by the audience. Aristotle insists on treating mimesis as artistic rather than viewing it as socio-cultural or philosophical. The whole lot of imitation, the whole assortment of imitation, the various types of imitations accompanied by the poet's voice in a drama is a powerful means of representing the world, with its foremost manifestation being narrative. The tragic hero, his weaknesses, his flaw, his mistakes can be best represented through mimesis, proper action, and also combined with the voice of the writer. The purest form of mimesis for Aristotle is the imitation of human action, and of course also the narrative. In its implementation, imitative mimesis records and reenacts human action in addition to narration, which gains effect when the poet speaks as little as possible by leaving his characters to explain in a dramatic manner. This represents life on a stage and, in a way, imitates life. To Plato, diegesis, a recital or telling, is restricted to the genre of lyric, but to Aristotle, to reveal the feelings of the character, some kind of a telling of one's own story is required. A kind of narrative is used along with mimesis. Diegesis is the representation of reality in a different way. The poet is silent while allowing the reader or the spectator to fill in gaps created by the character through imagination and interpretation. Now, we will be made to think, we will be made to listen to the words of the characters and made to imagine and interpret, not by looking at the action done by the character, but through the words spoken by the character. The narrator, the writer, indirectly discloses the story or the plot, but the process of discovering the character's feelings and thoughts is done by the reader or the viewer. So the process of discovering the truth by applying the reader's or the viewer's imagination is all what diegesis is about. Reality is indirectly represented to incite realization through the reader's experiences, emotions, thoughts, and imagination. The reader or the listener or the viewer receives the telling and reframes it with one's own contribution of thought. Only the frame is set by the author or the narrator, and the picture is sketched by the receiver of information. The basic pattern will be given. We will be adding multicolor to the basic reality. We think that recital is restricted to poetry and action or mimesis or imitation is restricted to drama. And in epic theatre, Bertolt Brecht, the German 20th century dramatist, who made his audience to think. In Aristotelian theatre, the audience is made to feel one with the character and feel pity and fear in his fall and effect some kind of a hamartia. Some kind of a pity and fear. Creating some kind of a pity and fear, effect some kind of a catharsis, We have to watch a drama, feel pity and fear, and effect some kind of a catharsis. But in the 20th century German dramatist Bertolt Brecht, like his drama, like Life of Galileo, the audience is made to think, not emotionally get excited or identified with the character. In Girish Karnad's Nagamandala, the audience is expected to interpret the things that are happening on the stage. But in Shakespearean theatre or the Western theatre, the story is different. When Shakespeare's Othello, a Western theatre in the past, means 16th century or 17th century. In Shakespearean play Othello, the character Iago declares to the audience, I am not what I am. That reveals his character. The action, the mimesis, could be seen and felt by the audience. The presence of Othello on the stage would make us feel his character in the direct representation on the stage. Whereas diegesis telling is exposed when a playwright explores the nature of Othello as a character. His tragic flow is understood through action and not through the direct representation. He acts out and he tells, I am not what I am. Then there is a curious mix of the two in Shakespeare. The Greek Aristotelian theatre is there, and we have the epic theatre by Bertolt Brecht. In between, there is Shakespeare. There is a continuity. There is a process of making and remaking, renewing of the theater using all these kinds of narrative techniques. These are all narratives. Aristotle stood for unification of action, time, and place in his drama, in any drama of his time. But in 20th century, in epic theater, we don't have such kinds of strict rules followed. Narratives help us construct our own identity. So, the Greek dramatists constructed very much integrated type of a citizen. In those days, they required such people to fight against all kinds of hardships in their life. We are made of sterner stuff, Shakespeare says. During Renaissance in Europe, they went back to Aristotle or Plato and such classical theater or their theories just to build up a kind of tradition and history. And based upon that, they constructed some kind of a identity. But because of the coming of scientific inquiry in those days, there was a tendency to question that as well. When Greek theater was basically founded upon the question of fate, of course, of everything is left to fate or God, we never know. But when we come to Shakespeare, we see it is not in the stars that we are thus and thus, but in us. We can, in Milton, we see we can create a hell out of heaven and heaven out of hell. Man became more prominent. In Greek drama, man is a mere tool. In Girish Karnad's drama, we see Nagamandala, or in Brethian drama, Life of Galileo, we see again thinking men acting drama. In our street plays nowadays, we see a kind of treatment unlike that we see in our professional dramas. In professional drama, we would see some kind of an Aristotelian theory used. By watching a drama, we will be emotionally excited. And when we watch some films, highly melodramatic, we will laugh or we will cry and we will almost have a heart attack. But in certain films, we will be made to think. The narrative will be used not to just to please you. It may not be an entertainer. It will be made to think. The audience can have his or her own portion or role in making the text complete. It's liberating. There is democracy in it. We have the power to vote, the right to vote, just like that. So narratives have different structures. These structures have got certain politics. Certain structures can contain us, control us, trap us. Some others can free us, liberate us. Reality in any piece of art is a representation, it's a construction. So we have to know what went into the making of the construction. Just as we look into the details of the ingredients of a food item, whatever things had gone into the making of these bakery items we would look into, or a medicine, for example, anything, there will be details given. Just like that, we have to look into the structure and analyze the plot. What comes first, what comes next, why certain things come first and certain other things never come first, why there is always a tragic hero at the center in Shakespearean theatres, why man is at the center and no other being is given a primacy in tragedies. Things like that. So, mimesis and diegesis are two ways to construct a narrative. A writer or an author would resort to different techniques, and ultimately a piece of art would be there before our eyes to read or watch. Then we have to look into those kinds of techniques as well to understand the workings of a piece of art, to unearth the inner meanings as well as unearth the ideology of the text as well. The content and the form and the methods, everything is important in the analysis of a text. A film or a drama or a poem or a story is not the content alone, how it is communicated, the arrangement of the plot, the techniques used by the author. All these are to be looked into in detail so that we will be able to understand how reality is constructed through certain representations.